Picture this. Two people start their careers the same year. Same city, similar salaries, similar background. 25 years later, one of them is quietly sitting on a $2 million net worth. No fanfare, no viral posts, no flashy car in the driveway. They drive a 4-year-old Toyota. They live in a neighborhood that looks perfectly ordinary. Their coworkers have absolutely no idea. The other person, they've been living large the whole time. Luxury apartment, designer wardrobe, vacations every few months documented on social media. But when you look under the hood of their finances, there is almost nothing there. A retirement account that's barely touched, more debt than assets, and a growing anxiety every time a bill lands in their inbox. Here's the uncomfortable truth nobody talks about loudly. In 2026, looking wealthy and actually being wealthy are not just different things, they are almost opposite forces. The more energy you spend performing financial success for other people, the less of it you actually get to build for yourself. Today, I'm going to walk you through 16 specific practical moves that the quietly wealthy use to build serious money while staying completely under the radar. These aren't vague motivational ideas. These are behavioral patterns, financial structures, and mindset shifts that separate the person who actually has money from the person who just looks like they do. Let's get into it. Move 1. Understand the performance trap before it understands you. Before we talk tactics, we need to talk about the trap. There is a documented psychological phenomenon happening to millions of people right now called financial performance. The habit of spending money not because something genuinely improves your life, but because of how it looks to other people. Social media is the engine driving every platform algorithmically rewards displays of consumption. The more you show off, the more engagement you get. And the more engagement you see on other people's consumption, the more your brain interprets that as the baseline normal. Here's what the data actually tells us. Total American credit card debt hit $1.277 trillion as of the fourth quarter of 2025, the highest level since tracking began in 1999. That is not a coincidence in the age of Instagram. A significant portion of that debt is not coming from emergencies. Among people carrying credit card balances, 61% have been in debt for at least a year, up sharply from 53% the year prior. These are not people who had one bad month. These are people trapped in a cycle of spending to maintain a version of themselves that exists primarily for an audience. The Invisible Millionaire spotted this trap early and made a deliberate decision to opt out. Their purchases exist to serve their actual life, not to broadcast a lifestyle, not to signal status, not to keep pace with people whose finances they know nothing about. The moment you stop spending for an audience, every dollar you earn starts working harder. That shift in mindset is the foundation everything else is built on. Move 2. Redefine what a good car actually means. The car is always the first test, and most people fail it immediately. Here is something the car industry has known for decades and quietly counts on. People make car decisions based on how the car makes them feel when other people see them. Not on transportation math, not on total cost of ownership, on image. A new luxury vehicle in the $60,000 to $80,000 range loses somewhere between 15 and 25% of its value within the first year alone. By year 3, you have often lost 40% or more of what you paid. And yet the loan payments, plus insurance premiums that are significantly higher for luxury vehicles, continue marching out of your account every single month. Now run the alternative scenario. A 2 to 3 year old reliable Japanese or Korean vehicle purchased outright or with a short loan, low insurance costs, and a track record of reliability. The difference in monthly cash flow between these two choices can be $800 to $1,200 per month, depending on the vehicles. Put that difference into a low-cost index fund over 10 years at a conservative 8% annual return. That's not a small number on the other end. That's a number that changes what your retirement looks like. The wealthy people who understand this don't make car decisions based on who's watching. They make them based on math. The car gets them where they're going. The savings gap gets invested. Nobody sees the investment, and that's the entire point. Move 3. Stop letting your zip code define your identity. Housing is where the most money quietly disappears in a person's financial life, not always through bad decisions, but through decisions made for social reasons rather than financial ones. The pressure to live in the right neighborhood, in a home that signals your success, is constant and largely invisible. It's baked into conversations with colleagues, into comparisons with friends who bought before prices rose, into the way people describe their commutes and their school districts and their weekend errands. But here is what most people never calculate. When you buy more house than you need to meet a genuine lifestyle requirement, you don't just pay more mortgage, you pay more property taxes, more in homeowners insurance, more in maintenance costs that scale with square footage, more in utilities, and more in furniture to fill the rooms you didn't need. The total cost multiplier on an oversized home is substantial. The invisible millionaire makes housing decisions on function and value, not prestige. They often live in homes that look unremarkable from the outside. Their neighbors have no idea what's in their brokerage account, and the money they're not spending on extra square footage, extra property taxes, and extra maintenance is compounding somewhere far more useful. Move 4. Master the art of the tax-advantageous invisibility cloak. This is one of the most powerful moves available to anyone with earned income, and the majority of Americans underuse it dramatically. Tax-advantaged retirement accounts are, in a very real sense, a government-sanctioned mechanism for building invisible wealth. Money goes in before taxes, grows without being taxed annually on gains, and compounds for decades before you owe anything on it. Nobody can see this account. It doesn't change how you look. It doesn't upgrade your lifestyle in any visible way. In 2026, the 401k contribution limit sits at $23,500 for most workers, with catch-up provisions for those over 50 that push the limit higher. The Roth IRA gives you a different flavor of the same idea. You pay taxes now, but qualified withdrawals in retirement are completely tax-free, including all the growth. Here's the compound math that most people gloss over. Someone who begins contributing $600 per month to a tax-advantaged account in their mid-20s, earning an average annual return of 7%, doesn't end up with a slightly comfortable retirement. They end up with a life-changing one. The final number by traditional retirement age is well into 7 figures, and nobody saw it accumulating. There was no moment of public financial success, just consistent, invisible, patient compounding. Max these accounts before you think about any other form of investing. The tax advantages alone, on top of the compounding, create a structural edge that flashy investments rarely match. Move 5. Reject the comparison economy entirely. There is now a clinical term for what social media does to financial behavior. Researchers call it financial anxiety driven by social comparison, and its effects on spending are measurable and significant. Here is the irony at the center of it. The people whose lives look the most financially impressive online are frequently the ones under the most financial stress privately. Nearly 1 in 5 Americans carrying credit card debt worries they might not be able to make their minimum payments within 6 months. These are not people who are winning. These are people performing winning. The vacation photos don't show the credit card statement that follows them. The renovation content doesn't mention the home equity loan. The luxury purchase haul doesn't come with a net worth disclosure. The invisible millionaire has developed what I'd call comparison immunity. Not because they're indifferent to quality of life, they care deeply about it, but because they've anchored their financial decisions to their own specific goals and values, rather than to what other people appear to be doing. They've internalized the understanding that most visible wealth is borrowed. When you stop measuring your financial life against curated performances, you stop making financial decisions in response to those performances. And that single shift saves enormous amounts of money over a lifetime. Move 6. Track net worth, not income, every single month. Income is the headline. Net worth is the actual story. A household earning $350,000 per year that spends $360,000 per year has a negative financial trajectory. A household earning $70,000 per year that spends $52,000 and systematically invests the difference has a strongly positive one. These two households are not in the same financial financial situation, despite the massive gap in raw income. Net worth is simple: everything you own minus everything you owe, assets minus liability. But the discipline of calculating it monthly and watching the trend line is more valuable than the formula itself. When you track net worth monthly, your financial behavior begins to change automatically. You start seeing every purchase as something that either moves the number up or keeps it flat. You start viewing debt reduction not as deprivation, but net worth acceleration. You start caring less about what your paycheck looks like and more about what you're actually keeping and growing. Build a simple spreadsheet. Every asset with a current value, every liability with a current balance, subtract, record, update monthly. That practice alone, the habit of watching your actual financial position rather than performing a financial position, is what separates people who are building something real from those who are just spending what they make. Move 7. Create a financial firewall through automation. Willpower is not a reliable financial strategy. This is not an insult, it's neuroscience. Decision fatigue is real. By the time most people have navigated a full workday of choices, the mental bandwidth available for financial discipline is genuinely depleted. Automation solves this by removing the decision entirely. When your 401k contribution is set to come out of your paycheck before it hits your bank account, you don't decide to invest this month, you already have. When your brokerage transfer happens automatically on the same day every month, the money is invested before your brain has a chance to redirect it. When your emergency fund builds automatically until it reaches your target, it builds whether or not you're in the mood to save. This creates a financial life that largely runs itself in the background. The wealth accumulates invisibly because you're not making conscious weekly decisions about it. The structure does the work. The behavioral economics research on this is consistent and compelling. People who automate their savings accumulate substantially more over time than people who try to save what's left over after spending. The reason is obvious once you see it. There is almost never anything left over after spending unless you've removed it first. Automate first, live on what remains. The gap between these two approaches, compounded over 20 years, is not small.
Move 8. Build a cash buffer that changes how you make every decision.
Living without a financial cushion creates a subtle but powerful distortion in decision-making that most people never consciously notice. When money's tight, every financial choice is made under low-grade stress. You calculate before agreeing to dinner. You hesitate in ways that become visible to people around you. You accept job offers faster than you should because you can't afford the job search to take longer. You stay in situations, careers, relationships, living arrangements that don't serve you because the financial risk of leaving feels too high. An emergency fund of 3 to 6 months of essential expenses doesn't just protect you from job loss or unexpected costs. It changes the quality of every decision you make. You can afford to be selective. You can negotiate from a position of patience rather than desperation. You can say no to things that aren't right for you without catastrophic consequence. And the invisible wealth perspective, this buffer means your financial constraints never become visible to others. You never have to explain why you can't make it to something. You never have to ask for help covering a gap. You simply have options and you exercise them quietly. That quiet agency, the ability to make choices based on what you actually want rather than what you can afford, is one of the most underrated benefits of maintaining a meaningful cash reserve. Move 9. Be strategically, deliberately, and unapologetically boring with investments. The personal finance content that gets shared, liked, and discussed is overwhelmingly about exciting investments. The cryptocurrency that tripled, the individual stock that went vertical, the options trade that paid off. These stories are compelling because they feature sharp reversals and dramatic outcomes. They are also statistically misleading about how wealth is actually built. The S&P 500 has delivered roughly 10% annual returns over the last century through war, wars, recessions, pandemics, political upheavals, and financial crises. Not in a straight line, in a deeply volatile, frequently terrifying, often irrational line, but consistently enough over long horizons that a person who simply buys low-cost index funds and never sells during panics ends up with an extraordinary result. The problem is that missing even a small handful of the market's best days by being out of the market trying to time things dramatically reduces that return. The research on this is unambiguous. Staying fully invested continuously through discomfort and doubt captures the full return. Trying to be clever about timing almost always costs you. The invisible millionaire's portfolio is boring to describe at a party. Indexed funds, low cost, long horizon, no hot tips, no dramatic stories, just a steadily growing number that nobody sees. That's exactly how they want it.
Move 10. Guard financial information like it's your most valuable asset. Here is something most people learn the hard way. The moment other people know what you have, your financial life becomes a negotiation with their expectations. If family members discover you have significant savings, the nature of certain conversations changes permanently. Requests become more frequent, and the implicit pressure to be the one who can afford it in group settings quietly intensifies. People who would never have asked you for money begin to feel entitled to some relationship with yours. If colleagues learn your income is higher than theirs, dynamics shift. If acquaintances observe signs of financial success, you become a target for people selling things, investments, opportunities, causes, schemes. Financial privacy is not dishonesty. It is boundary setting. You are not required to disclose what you earn, what you own, what you paid for your home, what your accounts contain, or what your financial trajectory looks like. The most financially successful people treat this information the same way they treat any other sensitive personal data. They simply don't share it. When the subject comes up, deflect warmly and move on. No lies required, no lengthy explanations, just a redirect and a change of topic. Over time, people stop asking, and you retain the freedom to make financial decisions without a committee of people who know your numbers offering their opinions about them.